Dawn was breaking over the distant mountains, soft sunlight filtering through the ancient forest canopy. A pair of bobcats moved cautiously among the low bushes, mother leading her cub, following behind the bobcat. Cub was only weeks old with characteristic, mottled fur and sharp black ears standing tall and alert. This was his first hunting lesson, an important ritual marking the beginning of his journey to adulthood. His amber eyes constantly scanned around, eagerly observing everything from how his mother placed each step quietly to how she listened to the sounds of the forest. They ventured deep into the western woods, where a small meadow offered plenty of prey. This was familiar territory for the mother bobcat, an area with abundant food and few predators. In the distance, a forest rabbit was grazing, completely unaware of the two predators' presence. The mother bobcat signaled for her cub to lie still and observe. This was the first hunting lesson. The bobcat cub perked his ears, trying to memorize his mother's every move, but just as she prepared for the pounce, a piercing shriek rang out from above, from the sky. A large red-tailed hawk swooped down at breathtaking speed. His fierce eyes weren't targeting the rabbit, but the bobcat cub exposed in the meadow. In an instant, everything descended into chaos. The rabbit darted away, the mother bobcat whipped around, but it was too late. The hawk's razor-sharp talons lunged downward, aiming straight for the bobcat cub. In panic, he jumped backward, avoiding a fatal strike, but still catching Adelon that slashed the skin on his shoulder. His frightened cry mingled with his mother's furious growl. The mother bobcat charged forward, her fur standing on end, fangs bared at the attacker. The hawk soared upward, but didn't surrender. He circled around and dove once more, this time targeting them. Other bobcat, without time to think. The terrified cub bolted into the dense forest, seeking shelter. The sounds of battle gradually faded behind him, but fear kept him running relentlessly. He ran through thorny bushes, under fallen tree trunks, across small streams. Every unfamiliar sound made his little heart race with anxiety. When he finally managed to stop the bobcat cub, found himself in a completely unfamiliar part of the forest. The trees here were taller, denser, with no recognizable signs of the territory. Where he and his mother usually roamed, the wound on his shoulder began to throb with pain, and fear gradually gave way to confusion. Then despair. From high above, the hawk still circled, searching for the escaped prey. The bobcat cub trembled as he huddled beneath a fallen tree, trying to make himself as small as possible. In that moment, he realized a harsh truth. He was separated from his mother, lost in an unfamiliar part of the forest, with a dangerous predator still lurking above. Darkness gradually descended upon the ancient forest. The last rays of sunlight vanished behind distant mountains, yielding to night with countless twinkling stars. For many forest creatures, this was time to rest, but for predators like bobcats, night was when they became most active. However, the bobcat cub had no mind for hunting. For hours, he had huddled beneath the fallen tree, trembling from pain and fear. The wound on his shoulder had clotted but still ached. With every movement, hunger began to gnaw at his small stomach. But fear was stronger than hunger. An owl hooted from a far, wind rustled through the leaves, and occasionally the soft growl of some animal all made the bobcat cub flinch. He missed his mother's warmth, missed the feeling of safety when curled up beside her in their familiar den. No, he was alone, small and vulnerable in the vast, dangerous forest. Hunger eventually went out with extreme caution. He crawled from his hiding place, scanning his surroundings. No sign of the hawk, nascent of any large predators nearby. He moved gently, trying to remember what his mother had taught him. Keep your body low, place each step silently, and stay alert. After moving for a short while, the bobcat cub detected an unusual scent, the smell of fresh meat. The aroma stimulated all his senses, awakening his latent hunting instincts. He slowly approached, the source pushing through a patch of low oak bushes, and then he saw a dead fawn lying on the ground. But there was more. Beside the deer carcass stood amateur gray wolf. Feeding the wolf was many times larger than the bobcat cub, with silvery gray fur clearly defined in the moonlight and yellow eyes bright in the darkness. Instinct told the bobcat cub to flee immediately. Wolves were among the most feared predators in the forest, and they rarely tolerated trespassers in their territory or at their food. But just Ash was about to turn away, a dry branch snapped under his paw, creating a sound that startled the wolf into looking up. The wolf's eyes locked instantly on the bobcat cub with no escape route. He shrank back, his fur standing on end in a futile attempt to appear larger. He growled weakly, a sound that was more like a kitten's mewl compared to the wolf's majestic howl. Instead of attacking as expected, the wolf merely observed the bobcat cub with curiosity. He slowly approached, causing the bobcat cub to freeze in terror, but instead of biting the wolf, only sniffed him, paying particular attention to the wound on his shoulder. After a while of observation, the wolf surprisingly returned to the deer carcass, used his muzzle to pull a small piece of meat, then pushed it toward the bobcat cub. It was such an unexpected gesture that the bobcat cub didn't know how to react. Hunger finally prevailed, and he cautiously approached, eyes never leaving. The wolf then quickly grabbed the meat. Something extraordinary had happened. The wolf not only didn't attack but allowed the bobcat cub to eat with him. Perhaps he recognized that the cub was just a small creature in need of help. Or perhaps he had experienced a similar fate, lost from his mother, injured and alone in the vast forest that night. The bobcat cub slept not far from the wolf on a pile of dry leaves by a tree trunk. For the first time since losing his mother, he felt safe. The following days passed in a strange rhythm. The gray wolf, a creature that normally lived in packs but now lived independently, seemed to have accepted the bobcat cub's presence. It wasn't friendship in the true sense, but a temporary alliance, a rare symbiotic relationship between two species that weren't naturally friends in the wild. The wound on the bobcat cub's shoulder gradually healed, and with each passing day he learned more from his unexpected friend. Not direct lessons like his mother used to teach, but through observation and imitation he observed how the wolf hunted, how he applied absolute patience when stalking prey, how he used the wind to mask his scent, and how he utilized terrain to his advantage. Though they were different species with different hunting methods. Wolves hunted in packs, relying on strength and endurance, while bobcats hunted alone, relying on agility and stealth. The basic principles remain the same. One early morning, when mist still blanketed the forest, the wolf led the bobcat cub to a small stream. The water was crystal clear, flowing gently over smooth round stones. The wolf stopped at a narrow section of the stream where many fish were swimming. He stood motionless as a stone statue, eyes never leaving the water. The bobcat cub, with natural curiosity, sat observing from a nearby rock. Time passed, and when a fish swam close enough, the wolf launched a lightning-quick strike into the water, sharp claws catching the fish. This was a skill rarely seen in wolves, but this wolf had perhaps developed it while living alone. The bobcat cub watched with wide, admiring eyes. Bobcats typically hunted mice, rabbits, and small rodents, rarely fish, but in the harsh conditions of the wild, adaptability and learning were keys to survival. And so he decided to try. His first attempt ended with a clumsy jump, splashing water everywhere, and of course no fish caught. The wolf observed with what seemed like amusement. The second, third, fourth attempts, the bobcat cub still failed, but he didn't give up on the 12th attempt. With patience learned from his wolf friend, the bobcat cub finally succeeded. His small claws caught a tiny silverfish, not a big prize, but it was the first victory he had achieved on his own since losing his mother. Day by day, the bobcat cub's hunting skills improved. He learned to stalk patiently, learned to smell prey from afar, and most importantly, learned to survive in a world that wasn't always friendly. The wolf also taught the bobcat cub another important lesson: how to recognize and avoid danger. He showed him how to recognize the scent of large predators like bears and mountain lions, how to detect signs of humans, and how to find safe shelter when necessary. One day, as these strange friends walked along a trail, the wolf suddenly stopped, his nose twitching as he sniffed the air. The bobcat cub mimicked him, and then he smelled a familiar scent, a scent that evoked warmth, safety, and maternal love. It was his mother's scent in that moment. The deepest instincts awakened. Every cell in the bobcat cub's body urged him to find his way back to his mother, to his family, to where he truly belonged. He looked at the wolf with a gaze full of gratitude but also determination. The wolf seemed to understand. He softly growled, not a threatening growl, but like a farewell. And then, without hesitation, the bobcat cub dashed toward his mother's scent, his heart pounding with hope and unbridled joy. His mother's scent led the bobcat cub through dense forests, wild meadows, and babbling brooks. Each step brought him closer to family, to where he truly belonged. No longer the clumsy, frightened cub of days ago. He now moved with newfound confidence. All the skills he had learned from his wolf friend had become second nature. He knew how to hide in shadows, how to sneak through dangerous areas without drawing attention, and most importantly, how to survive. The wound on his shoulder had completely healed, leaving only a small scar, a mark of his extraordinary adventure when Thiessen reached its zenith. The Bobcat cube arrived at a familiar forest. This was the boundary of the territory where he and his mother had lived, a place where before he had never been allowed to venture alone. Everything evoked happy memories, the characteristic scent of soil and vegetation, birds singing on high branches, and an indescribable feeling of safety. He stopped beside a large rock where his mother often sunbathed on winter mornings. Her scent was still fresh. She had been here not long ago. The bobcat cub raised his head and made a small call, a distinctive sound that only mother and cub used to call each other. The call echoed in the silent forest space, and then silence. He waited, his heart pounding. And then from afar a response, his mother's call, all fatigue, all pain dissolved. The bobcat cub rushed toward the sound at his fastest speed. Through bushes, jumping over fallen tree trunks, his mother's call grew closer, clearer, and stronger, full of excitement and relief. Then he saw her, the mother bobcat, standing on a high rock, her form noticeably thinner, her eyes tired but yearning. When she saw her son, her eyes lit up with indescribable joy. Without hesitation, she leaped down from the rock, and mother and son rushed into an emotional embrace. She licked the healed wound on his shoulder, softly growling with concern. The bobcat cub nestled against his mother, savoring the safety and warmth he'd missed so much in that sacred moment of reunion. It seemed the whole world contained only the two of them. No more fear, no more danger, only deep maternal love and boundless joy. After the initial emotional moment, the mother bobcat led her son back to their familiar den. Along the way, the bobcat cub couldn't help but notice scratches on his mother's body, signs of the battle with the hawk that day, and perhaps signs of her relentless search for him. She had not given up, had never stopped looking for him throughout. This time, when they reached the den, the bobcat cub felt like he was returning home after a long journey. Everything was as he remembered: the cozy den lined with soft, dry leaves, the familiar family scent, and the absolute feeling of safety. That night, as he curled up beside his mother, the bobcat cub dreamed of his wolf friend in the dream. He saw the wolf running freely across a vast meadow under silver moonlight. He paused for a moment, turned his head to look at the cub, and then disappeared into the darkness. When dawn came, the bobcat cub woke with a new understanding of the world. The adventure had transformed him from a small, clumsy forest cat into a young hunter with skills and courage. He had learned that in the harsh natural world, help sometimes comes from the most unexpected places, and friendship can transcend species boundaries. In the following days, the mother bobcat began teaching her son new hunting lessons, but she was surprised to find he knew more than she thought: how to stalk patiently, how to smell prey from afar, even their skill of catching fish. When the bobcat cub demonstrated his fish-catching skill, his mother looked at him with amazement and pride. Life gradually returned to normal. The bobcat cub grew each day, becoming a skilled hunter with unique abilities, combining what his mother taught and what he learned from his wolf friend. But in his heart, there was always a special place for his unexpected friend, one who gave him not just food and shelter, but taught him about kindness and survival in the wild. Sometimes on moonlit nights, the young bobcat would climb a high rock looking toward the distant forest where he had met the wolf, and sometimes from far away, a howl would echo back like a greeting from an old friend, a reminder of an extraordinary adventure and a friendship that transcended all boundaries. The scare in his shoulder would forever be a mark of his encounter with the hawk, but it was also a mark of a journey that had transformed him into a stronger and wiser bobcat. When spring came, bringing nature's rebirth, the young bobcat stood proudly on a high rock, surveying his territory, no longer a frightened cub, but a confident hunter with valuable lessons learned from both his mother and a special friend.